Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Inuit, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. On the panel today are Ms. Linda Schultz and Mr. Richard Whitbread. Our assessor is Mr. Jeremy Pohl, and our administrative personnel are Ms. Fran Picotto and Ms. Twinkle Sharma. My name is Bill Moretsky. I am also on the panel and will be chairing this hearing. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 to 7 on our docket today. Ms. Picotto, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jeremy Ryan Pohl.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Howard Lindsay McCubbin.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Our first property on the docket today is 365 Osborne. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Pohl, you may begin your presentation, please.
Roll number is 12-0976373300, 365 Osborne Street. The 2025 assessment is for $16,104,000. Property is built in 2006. Leasable area is 76,282 square feet. There is on-site parking. I will turn over to page 2. It is a Class A call center occupied by Bell MTS off of Osborne, backing onto the rail yards, just as you come under the underpass on Osborne. Further pictures are on page 3. Page 4 indicated that there was a sale in 2007. It was $1, but sworn value for $13,850,000. The lease information for Bell MTS is on page 4. Market comparables are on page 5. We have a mean of $62 a square foot and a median of $16.25, and that is for 1558 Wilson, 114 Gary, or 1000 Waverly. Those comparables are on the back of the brief if you'd like to take a look at those. Moving on to page 6. We have the workup for the subject property. For the 76,282 square feet, we have $15.46 a square foot, which produces a PGI of $1,100,000 $79,320. Our parameters of 6% for vacancy gives us effective gross income of $1,108,561. Expenses at 3%, shortfall at $8 gives us a net operating income of $1,038,689. Capped at 6.45%. Gives us our value at $16,104,000. Fairly simple income statement today for this property. So with that, I'm open to question. I'm open to, I guess, limited questions as I'll explain on record. I'm not the assessor that authored any of the appeals here today. That was Mr. Abhishek Ratan. He's not available today, so I'm here to enter the evidence in. So that one is not my opinion about it, it's his opinion about it, but with that, put that into the board.
Can you repeat the last couple of sentences that you said? You're kind of tailing off.
Sure. I'm not the assessor that authored these briefs. It's not my opinion of value. That is Abhishek Ratan. He's unavailable today. So for all of these appeals here today, this is his opinion of value. Given that I'm the assessor that is entering the evidence in here today on his behalf, I can't answer an opinion of value question because it's not my opinion of value. So with that, I guess usually it's open to questions for the appellant. But with that, I really can't answer.
So you're saying that you're not open to questions then?
That's what I was kind of getting at. I can answer limited questions if Mr. McCubbin has any, but given that I'm not the author of any of the reports here today and any of the briefs here today.
I'm going to go through the regular process or cycle that I go through for questioning, but if you feel you're not, that you cannot answer the question, then just don't answer it. Okay? That's okay. Is that okay?
No way. Guess stop kicking. Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. McCubbin, any questions on the assessor's presentation?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. No, I have no questions.
Okay. Ms. Schultz, any questions?
Just one question. This is all model driven, is that correct?
Pardon me?
Is all model driven?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Just building on that question, if there was an override on the model, would you know that on any of these cases today?
Well, the parameters would come out like a vacancy or a shortfall, I'd be able to pick that out, but if it was an override on a rent, most likely not, depending on what the rent was prior to what it was put to, but I don't see any of that.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. No other questions.
Do you know about the income and expense mailer? No?
Just that that's what was submitted. It was Artist Reed submitted it. They are the owner of the property, and it's been a single tenant since they purchased the property with Bell MTS.
Okay, and his net income, actual net income for 2022 was $1,115,466.
So I believe so, yes.
Okay, no further questions. Mr. McCubbin, you may begin your presentation.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so I'd like to submit my brief as evidence, please. We're dealing with 365 Osborne Street, roll number 120976 37300. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to correct the file number on this on my presentation to 1675, please. On the base page. Thank you.
Okay, noted.
Thank you. With respect to the assessment summary, it finds it's Altus REIT and the property owners, Artis REIT, and the property owners Artis Osborne Street Limited. The gross floor area is 76,282 square feet, and the leasable area is in total 76,282 square feet on 2 stories. And effective age, as you've heard, is 2006, and the site area is 183,380 square feet. We're dealing with that should not be 20, it should be 2025, April the 1st, 2025 reference date. An effective year is correct, January the 1st, 2025 for this report. The current assessed value is 60,104,000. The requested assessment, Mr. Chairman, is 14,741,000. And if I can get you to turn to your attention to the property site maps and photographs, it's on page 6. Mr. Bull covered this already somewhat, so I'll just, you can see it right there, the location, confluence of those north corner of Osborne and Pembina. The subject property is best described as a newer two-story suburban wood frame office building constructed in 2006. And I'm reading from page 7, Mr. Chairman. The property is located on the west side of Osborne Street between Dawn Avenue and Mulvey Avenue East, but considerably set back from Osborne, and located essentially behind the McDonald's restaurant and Red River Co-op gas bar. There is a large parking area comprised of 238 parking stalls, 3.1 stalls per 100 square feet of leasable, which is partially compromised by the BRT line at its southwest corner. So that parking is partially compromised by the setup of the BRT line. The total site is 4.43 acres and it's zoned M1-M2 industrial, and obviously it allows for this office building. Industrial is one of the most flexible zonings that we have in Winnipeg. It allows for retail, it allows for office and industrial. The total leasable area of the building is 75,986 square feet and was 100% occupied by a single tenant, Bell MTS. There are 2 elevators in the building. The subject property was designed and constructed to efficiently create a functional and cost-effective call center space for the tenant. We note that the quality of the build-out is purposefully constructed to act as a call center, and that the finishes would best be described as minimal when compared to other office space in suburban areas, newer office space in suburban areas. So it has minimal build out. With respect to the highest and best use, Mr. Chairman, the highest and best use for the subject is as it exists in its current use. With respect to the approaches to value, of course, we will just be dealing with the income approach to value with respect to this property. So we'll go right to the potential market rent. The asking net rents as of Q1 2023 for office is summarized as follows. And I'm reading from page 11, Mr. Chairman. And you can see Avison Young, Capital, CBRE, Colliers, CWS, and then you see the averages there. So if we go right down to the suburban asking rent, you'll see the average is 1605. In the first quarter, CWS was reporting 14.72 as their asking, and these are all asking rents. Bear in mind, they're not actual. The actual would tend to be somewhat lower. Colliers at 1662 in the first quarter, CBRE at 1703, and Capital at 1745. At 1547, with Avison coming in on the Q3 2022, the third quarter of 2022 at 1642. The overall Winnipeg market has seen relatively stable rents over the last 3 years. However, the face rents can be deceiving as they're requiring significantly more investment from landlords in the form of inducements to obtain them. With respect to Colliers Office Market Report, in general terms, rental rates remain relatively flat, but lease inducements have increased, compressed the net effective rents in Winnipeg's CBD. This continues to be the case approaching April 2023. Avison Young's Winnipeg Office Market Report found third quarter 2022 states from their third quarter report, states we continue to see landlords provide significant incentives to attract qualified tenants to lease downtown office space. And this is specifically for downtown, but it has a ripple effect in office space in general throughout the market. OFB, an analysis of the current and expected rents for each unit was undertaken. Unless otherwise stated, arm's length actual rents as of April 1st, 2023 were applied as the market, or step-ups occurring later in 2023, known as of April. Market rents were applied to vacant space in any of the buildings. And I will go through, Mr. Chairman, I'll let you know, with respect to my presentations today, because the properties are all the same in terms of property type, they're all offices. So I'll go a little bit more in detail on this property with respect to market rents and also with respect to capitalization rates. So my presentations in the other properties should be quicker and more concise anyway. So with respect to the subject property leases, in most cases, the actual rents achieved as of April 1st, 2023, if arm's length, are applied as market. Deductions were made from gross or semi-gross rent to determine net contribution. The net rent achieved as of April 2023 in the subject is $14.25 per square foot. Now, with respect to that rent on the subject property, we'll have a quick discussion here with respect to potential market rent summary, and that's you can find that on page 12, Mr. Chairman. In most cases, the actual rents achieved as of April 1st, 2023, if arm's length, are applied as market. Deductions were made from gross or semi-gross rents to determine net contribution. In Municipal Board Order A94-196, the board asserts that the subject property's contract rents are often better indicators of market rents than rents attained in other buildings. The reference date in this case was 1985. They state on page 3, and beginning with parentheses there, the board notes in this case that the 20 leases were executed in 1964 and 1985, exhibit number 3, appendix C. In the board's view, this direct evidence gives a more reliable indicator of 1985 market rent than the Dawson report of evidence of the rent paid in other office buildings. The use of these rental rates as opposed to rental rates in other office building overcomes the need to make adjustments for differences in location, age, amenities, etc. between the subject and comparison properties. And this case was between the assessor for the city of Winnipeg, and James Richardson and Sons Limited. And as I've stated, Municipal Board Order A94-196. So, and that speaks directly to the subject's rent at $14.25, Mr. Chairman. The following market rents, however, market rent comparisons were considered also. And you can see them on index 1 through 7. Border, Wilson, King Edward, Wilson, Gain, Henderson Highway, Main Street, and Pembina. And these are all suburban type situations, obviously. And you can see their net rent per square foot averaging at $14.53 with the median exactly at 15. And you see their relative lease period spanning over the reference period. Based on the above, we will apply the actual rent as market rent, which equates to $14.25 per square foot. The potential market rent is therefore $1,082,801. So you can see that calculation down below in the little table, Mr. Chairman, on page 12. With respect to the vacancy allowance, the city has used the vacancy allowance 6 to arrive at potential market income. We are in agreement with and will apply a rate of 6%. The shortfall rate of the city of Winnipeg assessment and taxation part is applied a shortfall rate of $8. We will also use $8 in our shortfall calculation. In regards to non-recoverable expenses, management and other, we feel 3% non-recovered expense allowance is not representative of market behavior. Our analysis indicated this allowance was too low when all non-recovered expenses were considered. We will accept the applied allowance in our income calculation. However, we may recognize any site-specific concerns relating to these expenses in either the capitalization rate or as a lump sum value adjustment with respect to the property. Now, in regards to the capitalization rates for this property type in general, I know it says there, please refer to the 2025 capitalization rate study, which we do not have in front of us, but these are excerpts from it. I'm on page 14, Mr. Chairman. So, with respect to capitalization rate, Q1 2023 office capitalization rates from the brokerage firms. And just a general statement here. The capitalization rate studies provided by Colliers and CBRE and Cushman in Q1 23 were considered. Limited weight should be placed on these rates as they are quite general for each market across Canada, and not necessarily based on the same methodology or NOI calculations as used by the city assessor. Further, the Colliers study typically is based on sales, top quality investment grade assets only, and typically include closing costs, which by their own estimates would result in an indicated capitalization rate that is 25 basis points lower than what would be derived using the methodology applied in assessment valuations. However, the studies do provide guidance on the compression of rates for various property types between the reference dates. So it's a guide assessed in a sense, with respect to how rates were compressed over the cycles. So you can see in the table below, again, if we go to suburban A, and suburban B, you can see there has been an increase in basis point for suburban A, 25 basis point increase, and 25 basis point increase for suburban office, and suburban B, 25 basis points also. Now, with respect to Q1 23, you can see the various reporting from Colliers. You can see for suburban A, it wasn't available, but suburban B, they were reporting 6 to 7. CBRE Q1 23, 7 to 8. And Cushman at 6.75 to 7.75. So, and that's just a guide, Mr. Chairman. Now, the risk due to income forecasts is reflecting the increased supply over demand and projected decreased demand as the hybrid work from home models begin to erode occupancies and possibly result in shorter lease terms in the future. We're yet to see that. So with respect to sales of recent office properties, particularly suburban type. There were relatively few, and I'm on page 15, Mr. Chairman, of my presentation. There were relatively few office transactions due to pandemic. Some properties listed for sale were either taken off the market or not sold by the reference date. The following office property transactions and listings in the recent years leading up to the April 2023 reference date are considered. In the calculations below, market rents as of the sale date were applied, in some cases applying the actual if deemed to be sustainable at market, with market vacancy allowance adjusted if necessary for site-specific experience. Market shortfall and 3% for non-recovered expenses and any additional income if warranted for those particular properties. Note the last cycle Altus Group applied a 7% non-recoverable expense allowance. The decreased allowance of 3% for the current analysis resulted in an increase to the capitalization rate of approximately 35 basis points. So when you look at the data set there from 1 to 7, you will see the properties in Carleton, Main, Broadway. Well, Carleton is downtown. I wouldn't necessarily call that. Wouldn't necessarily call that the suburban. Neither is that the Main Street property. But nevertheless, Broadway, Burnell, Dovercourt, Osborne Street South, you can see they're reporting Altus market cap rates are 9.85, 6.96, 7.56, and 6.05. The city has applied, I believe, a capitalization rate of 6.45% to convert the net operating income to market value. We're in agreement with this rate in this instance, and we will apply a capitalization rate of 6.45%. In regards to the income summary for the property, I'm now at page 16, Mr. Chairman. So you can see our EMI comes in at $1,017,832, and that's applying a $1,425 rent to the leasable area. That's actually the contract rent, Mr. Chairman. And you can see the expenses totaling $67,008, arriving at a net operating income of, $950,824. Applying a capitalization rate of 6.45%, we arrive at a value of $14,741,000 rounded. Reconciliation of value. Of the income approach to value is the sole approach considered. The above income approach valuation is considered as the appropriate assessed value to be used. In summary, we respectfully request the Board of Revision to reduce the 2025 realty assessment for the subject property from $16,104,000 to $14,741,000 for the reasons set forth above. Pardon me. And going through my appendix, you'll see the assessment department income summary. You'll see the owner of the property on page 20. And you will see the income and expense statements with respect to the cycle. And that is my presentation. Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if I could take a couple of minutes break, and I'll be right back before questions.
Okay,
I just need to clear my throat out here.
Sorry, go ahead. I would like to go for an in-camera break as well.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll do that at the same time.
Okay, fair enough.
So the assessor will have to leave the room as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And how long?
Just a couple of minutes for the in-camera.
A couple of minutes. Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Honor.
We're back in order. So you were finished your presentation, Mr. McCubbin?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Pohl, do you have any questions on the applicant's presentation?
As I said, I'm not the assessor assigned to the file. I'm entering the information in today for the assessor is unavailable today. So on that aspect, I won't have any questions for the felon today for any of the deals.
Well, I'm still gonna ask you every single time.
That's fine,
so
no.
Bear with me, yeah. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Okay, so your approach is to use the actual in-place rents. And then you're agreeing with all of the other aspects of the expenses. You're agreeing with what the the assessor had,
That's correct, Mr.
and
Chairman.
you're agreeing on the capitalization rate.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so you're not using any of the actual expenses?
No, I'm not. I'm just using the market rent, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'm applying, I'm using the actual contract rent, using it as a market rent.
Yeah.
I believe I discussed that, my rationale for doing that with respect to going over the municipal board order. And that's our rationale for using the contract rent as market rent, where you don't have to do any adjustments to that specific property. And with respect to, so it's market rent and we're applying the market parameters.
Okay. No further questions then? Anything in summation, Mr. Pohl?
Yes, I do. I just want to point out from the argument that I've heard, our model predicted a $1,038,689 NOI. The actual was $115,466. So our model produced a NOI that was underneath the actual at 7.3%, by 7.3%. And then the appellant is seeking a measure of reduction underneath that. So I think that's where the argument lies.
Anything in summation, Mr. McCubbin?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a statement in my summation here with respect to what Mr. Pohl just said there. I mean, if he was going to be just presenting the evidence as such and not wanting and don't have the ability to be questioned on the evidence, I mean, we can get into the statements as presented, but he chooses to make a statement with respect to that showing the NOI in that case is higher than the cities, and it should be and the assessed value should be confirmed. I believe that's patently unfair because now we're getting into.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. I
Yeah.
completely agree with what you're saying.
Okay, fair enough.
He never said anything about it in his regular presentation,
No.
and he brought it forward in the summation. So what I'm going to do is, based on what he's just said in his summation, that should have been in his presentation. So I'm going to allow you to question him on that. Okay, and the board members as well. Okay.
Okay, fair enough. So, Mr. Pohl. So if I can turn your attention to your presentation, please. So in your summation, can you please go over your summation with referencing the income and expense statement submitted in your report, please?
Page 19 on 18 and 19.
Page 18 and 19. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough, right?
As I highlighted, we went over the rent. I said the income expense questionnaire was in full in the back along with the comps. It's highlighted on page 19, 115,466. It's also in your brief on pages 23 and 24.
That's correct. And now So with respect to that statement there, that net income was derived from a market rent of what? Sorry.
$14.25, which is in place.
Okay. Do you agree $14.25 is a suitable market rent for this property?
What I'm stating is in the brief that was submitted by Abhishek Ratan, that the actual rents in place is $14.25.
But we can't, yeah, okay, fair enough, but we can't isolate the net operating income and make a statement as you've done, and I should be asking you questions here, but forgive me, please. Isolate the net operating income as you did and comparing it to the city and saying that you think that the assessed value is fair and not be able to discuss because all we're looking at here is the end result, which is the assessed value of the property, and then not be able to readjust the mechanics behind why you choose a rent to arrive at that. But so anyway, I get your point. Thank you very much for your explanation.
Okay, Ms. Schultz, any questions on that? On the
Clarification.
income and expense mailer?
Well, one question. So you said you're using the market rent of $14.25, correct?
Are you
Who are you
addressing me?
Oh, no, sorry, the assessor.
Oh, okay.
No, we're not using that. We're saying that, like again, it's highlighted in the brief. I'm just, and I think I phrased it correctly. I didn't ask any questions in answer, but I am summarizing what I've heard from the argument, and the argument comes down to where the net operating income is. For me
Okay.
to say that our model is this, the actual is this, and the agents is that, I don't think that's an unfair thing to say. That really is the argument.
Yeah, Mr. Pohl, you didn't make that argument during your presentation. You made it in your summation.
Yeah. So, because I'm looking at the.
I can hear the appellant's argument and I can reference mine. That's the purpose of a summation. Once you hear the complete argument from both sides, that's what we can reference, and that's what I referenced. So I did reference our our model. I did state that we have the income expense in our brief, and it is by Abhishek Ratan, and we listened to the appellant is. So I'm not sure what the issue that seems to be coming to light in a statement.
I was looking at the rent per square foot that you use on page 6 at 1546.
Yep, that's the model.
That's the model, but the
Yeah.
actual you're saying is 14.25.
Yeah, and that's
all. Yep, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions on that?
I have none, thank you.
I have none. So Mr. McCubbin, you can finish your summation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly going over my presentation. To sum it up, we've used the actual market rent. The actual contract rent, sorry, is market rent, and I've referenced our rationale for doing that with respect to municipal board and the way they look at things, and the way we have actually dealt with properties in the past with respect to assessment purposes, for assessment purposes, and so we're accepting all of the city's parameters in this specific instance and applying that market rent, Mr. Chairman, and that's my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the property of 365 Osborne. We now move on to 75 Fairfield. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Pohl, you may begin your presentation.
Okay, roll number is 0306515370. The property address is 75 Fairfield. The 2025 assessed value is $4,741,000. The year built is 1993. The effective year built that we have on record is 2000. Leasable area is 24,594 square feet.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interrupt for a second, please. I'm having some problems here. I'll continue right away. I just have to catch up here. Sorry. Or what's the file number in 75 Scarfield, please?
25, 24, 25, 18.
2580. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Turning to page 2. Pictures of where it's located. And then on page 3, some elevations from the curbside. Ample parking on site, including on page 4. On page 5 is the subject property leases. Manitoba Tourism Education Council is in the property along with Electronics Corporation. And this bit of storage area, so. On page 6 are our comparables at 1550 Wilson, 114 Gary, 1000 Waverly, same comparables as we just discussed. So that has a median of $16 a square foot and a median of $16.25, or a mean of $16 a square foot and a median of $16.25. And those areas are on the larger size of properties between 24,000 or 16,000 square feet approximately and 30,000 square feet. We reference page 12, again, to avoid any confusion from the last field. On page 12 is a continuation of the income expense that we just referenced for the subject property, showing the rents that are in place. Ranging from $13 and escalating up until, and will be into at the end of the term, $13.50, $14.50. So on the next page over, we see the income statement. We go along, we see that the net operating income is approximately $275,000. Back to our market approach. Schemes that are placed at $13.50 upwards to $16.27, which produces a PGI of $348,323. Our vacancy at 6%. Gives an effective gross income of $327,424. Expenses at 3%, shortfall at $8, gives us a net operating income of $305,796, capped at 6.45%, gives us our $4,741,000. With that, that is our presentation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any questions on the assessor's presentation?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I have none. Thank you.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
So your the actual then for the actual net operating incomes at 275,412 for 22 and 235,338 for 21, correct?
Right. Page 13.
So that is then a significant amount less than what the model is showing.
275,000, that's roughly 30,000 or so less, yes, what I highlighted.
Yeah, although the previous year was 235, right?
That's what they reported, yes.
No further questions. Mr. McCubbin, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to submit my brief. Is evidence 75 Scarfield Boulevard, Realty Rule number 03-0651-53700. The file number is 242518. Going down to page 2 of my presentation. The leasable area of this property, Mr. Chairman, is 24,594 square feet. It's a one-story building. And you can see the effective age is spanning the originally and the effective age of 2000. The site area is 83,360 square feet. And we're dealing with the assessment year of 2025, of course. The 2025 realty assessment as it stands is 4,741,000. And we're asking for it to be reduced to 3,995,000. Turn your attention to page 6 of my presentation. You can see the relative location and aerial photograph of the subject property on Scurfield. You see Chevrets at the back, essentially, of the property. Below, you can see a photograph of the actual property, street view, property description. The subject property is located in the north side of Scurfield Boulevard, just east of Beaufort Court in the Fort Garry industrial area. The building is 24,635 square. Is a 24,635 square foot multi-tenant office warehouse property. As the majority of the units are now fully office, the property is now classified as an OFS by the Assessment and Taxation Department. Over half the property is occupied by the Manitoba Tourism Council, and approximately 1/3 is occupied by Electronics Corporation. One unit is vacant, Unit 8, and one unit, Unit 6A, is simply unfinished storage space. The wall height is reported at 17 feet, and the clear ceiling height is approximately 12.5 feet to the underside of the joist. The masonry wall structure was built in 1993 with a planned and gross floor area of 24,635 square feet. And the department has signed an effective year bill of 2000. The subject site is irregular in shape with a total lot size, according to City of Winnipeg Property Assessment and Department records, of 83,707 square feet. The site is zoned M2 industrial. The parking area is situated primarily in front, the south side of the building. With respect to the highest and best use, on page 8, the highest and best use for the subject is as it exists in its current use. In regards to the approaches to value that are applicable, only the income approach is applicable. I did go through the market rents, and I would like my presentation from the previous property, Mr. Chairman, to carry through with the general comments in regard to market rents. So that's on page 11. And with respect to the potential market summary, that's on page 12. We're looking at the market rents for the appropriate rent for this property. And we consider the market rent to be contract rent, or contract rent to be market rent. In this case, they're interchangeable. You can see the you can see on page 12 the least comparable information used specifically for this property: Scurfield, Waverly, Pembina, and we're coming in with a median of 15 and an average of 14.77 for that general area. Now you have to look a lot more closely into those rents to find out, obviously, to adjust them to the subject property, but we're saying the subject property rents are market rents. So if you go to page 13 of my presentation, based on above, we will apply a market rent of $12.75 overall. So, and you can see the stratification of that and how we arrived at that overall rent, the stratification of the units, rental rates throughout the property. With respect to storage, we're applying a rent of $3.32 a square foot. So the potential market rent, market income is therefore $313,536. In regards to vacancy allowance, we're agreeing with the city on that, and also shortfall rate and non-recoverable expenses. With respect to the capitalization rate, we're asking for an increase in the capitalization rate. I did go through a general submission with respect to capitalization rates on the property previously, and that can be found on page 14 of my presentation. And as we look closely on page 15 to the specific properties in regards to suburban office, we can see the Broadway, Burnell, Dover, and Osborne on page 15 and their relative capitalization rates. The city has applied a capitalization rate of 6.45% to convert the net operating income to the market value. We believe this rate is too low given the subject's location and large common areas. We will apply a capitalization rate of 6.75%. So if you go to our income summary, please, on page 16, you can see that we arrive, after all those inputs, to the net operating income of $269,650 and applying a capitalization rate of 6.75%. We arrive at a rounded value of $3,995,000. And we respectfully ask the board to reduce the 2025 realty assessment for the subject property from $4,741,000 to $3,999,000 for the reasons set forth above. And with respect to the appendix, you can see on page 19, the city's income summary, and the following pages have to do with the submitted income and expense statements for the subject property. And I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions on the applicant's presentation?
I have none.
Okay. Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Whitbread, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
And I have none. Anything in summation, Mr. Pohl?
Oh,
Anything in summation, Mr. McCubbin?
No, thank you, Jim.
That will conclude this property, 75 Skirfield. Third item packet, 453 Dover Court. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Pohl, you may begin your presentation, please.
roll number is 030652102000, 453 Dover Court. The assessment for the 2025 year is $11,788,000. It's classified 60. G is grantable as it is a Manitoba hydro property. It's owner occupied. Effective year is 1998. We have a leasable area of 62,037 square feet. We look on page 2, shows the property. No sales of the property. Obviously, it's owner occupied. So we'll go straight to the market, which is on page 3, or sorry, page 4. Same comparables that we've already referenced. Medians of $16 and median of $16.25 and larger size properties. We go over to page 5 is the workup. Again, for 62,037 square feet, we have a PGI of 885,896, and the model used $14.07, $14.35. And there was a smaller area of some 1,200 some square feet at 1914. So generally it's about between 1407, 1435. So with the larger 2 CRUs. From that PGI, we have 60% vacancy applied, which gives us effective gross income of $832,742. Expenses at 3% and shortfall at $8. Gives us a net operating income of $777,982, capped at 6.6%. Gives us our capitalized value and assessment today at $11,788,000 rounded. Again, on page 9, just for reference, the income expense questionnaire, which shows that it is indeed a Manitoba Hydro property and it is owner occupied. So from that, open to questions.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any questions for the assessor?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
And I have none. Mr. McCubbin, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 453 Dovercourt Drive. I'd like to submit my presentation. There's evidence 030652100200. It's the roll number. File number 24-3361. Property owner is the Manitoba Hydroelectric Board. Client is Manitoba Hydro. And with respect to the leasable area, it's at 62,037 square feet. For reasons you've heard previously, Mr. Chairman. Stories, it's a one-story with a mezzanine. Its original age is 1998. With respect to, that should be the 2025 realty assessment, we're asking that the 2025 assessment be reduced from $11,788,000 to $11,081,000. In regards to the property, if you can go to page 6 of my presentation, the assessor have gone over this already. You can see the actual property. And brief description of property on page 7. It's up to property located at 4th Street, Dovercourt. It's situated on the east side of Dovercourt between Scarfield to the north and Henlow Bay to the south. The property is improved with an office building originally built in 1988 with masonry wall construction. Subject site is almost rectangular in shape with a total site size of 235,224 square feet or 5.4 acres, and it's zoned M2. The highest and best use for the subject is exists in the current use, Mr. Chairman. We go through to the income approach for value for this particular property. It's owner occupied. I'm not going to go through the market rents. On page 11, we've gone through those already. The city is, however, applying an overall market rent of $14.28 to all areas. We will be applying a market rent, Mr. Chairman, of $13.75 to all areas. And you can see below the market rents with the average and the median that's been shown before. So we arrive at a PMI of $853,009, vacancy allowance. We're in concert with the city at 6, and so with the shortfall, and also with the non-recoverable expenses, we're applying the same as the city. In regards to the capitalization rate, we are at the city has applied a capitalization rate of 6.6% to convert the net operating income to market value. We believe this rate is too high given the subject's location and age. We will apply a capitalization rate of 6.75 for this property, Mr. Chairman. And on page 16, you can see the income summary. With the net operating income at $747,996, with the application of a capitalization rate of 6.75%, we arrive at a value of $11,081,000 in total. In summary, we respectfully request for revision to reduce the 2025 realty assessment for the subject property from 11,788,000 to 11,081,000 for the reasons set forth above. And in the appendix, we'll see the assessment department's income summary and also the income and expense return for the subject property. And that is my presentation. I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions on the applicant's presentation?
I do not have any, no.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Have you inspected the building, sir?
I have not inspected this building.
Do you know what kind of business goes on in the building?
There are a multitude of businesses associated with Manitoba Hydro.
What does that mean?
Well,
Be more specific, please.
okay, well, essentially so if we can go to, just bear with me for a second. Be portrayed here. Doesn't show.
Mr. McCubbin, maybe I can help you.
Yes.
I'm looking for sort of, are there specialized equipments? Is it a different setup? If a new buyer went in to develop this, would they have huge issues with equipment and that sort of thing?
Well, they would have to convert it for depending on the use they want. If they want to convert it to office in totality, they would have to do quite a bit of demising within the building itself. So it would be a considerable expense to convert it, but the businesses that are within these units here, Mr. Chairman, support Manitoba Hydro, electronics, anything to do with maintenance, anything to do with Manitoba Hydro. These are actual, I guess you can say, arms of the Manitoba Hydro. Specialize in certain aspects of the hydro business and come under the umbrella of Manitoba Hydro.
You haven't actually been inside the building?
No, I have never been in this building, no.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, page 12.
Yes.
You have your market rents. And you have average 1477, median 15.
Right.
You based on that, you apply a rent of $13.75 overall.
Right.
Why did you choose to go less than the median or the average?
Because this is a conversion, Mr. Chairman, and it's chopped up specifically for the business of Manitoba Hydro. I haven't been in the building, but I've spoken to the representative of Hydro. It's specifically, the interior is specifically designed for Hydro. So it's sort of like smaller rooms, more common area, whatnot. And I felt a reduction from the median of $15 was appropriate, and a reduction of $1.25 would be appropriate. If this was being used for multi-tenant purposes and open to the market, Mr. Chairman, in the comparisons to the properties that I show, it would probably, if it was configured differently, it would probably get higher rents.
Okay, thank you. Anything in summation, Mr. Pohl?
No, I don't.
Anything in summation, Mr. McCubbin?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
That then will conclude item 3, 453 Dover Court. And then go to the next property, 1250 Waverly. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. And Mr. Pohl, you can begin your presentation, please.
Phone number is 030911909000, 1250 Waverly. 2025 assessment is for $5,730,000. It's built in 2005. Has a approximately small area of 24,751 square feet. The next page over. It is shown on page 2. So again, the newer, more modern build. As you can see, on page number 4 goes over the tenancies that are in place. We have a doctor in unit in one of the units, supplement company in another unit, another clinic in another unit, and another hearing specialist. So we have 4, I believe, out of 5 that are medical related. So it looks like this is in that vein. In that vein, you typically get higher rates. The next page over is our comparables. Median is $16.50, and the mean is $16.75. All for 2 page. Well, is where the comparables start from. An idea for that. On page 10 is the income expense mailer. In full. We can see the same tendencies I just referenced on page 11. On page 10, we have their financials. What we can see here is that they produce net operating income. Initially looked at $56,421. That, of course, is including a mortgage interest and a amortization as well. So when you take out those 2 line items, adjust for it, you're approximately 255,000. Okay. Again, you wouldn't be putting that in. From that point, we can go with the market approach. We used and looked at. Page 6. Again, for the 24,751 square feet, we have $412,066. Our leasable area, or I should say our leasable area, was 24,751. So our PGI is again $412,066. Vacancy at 6% gives us effective gross income at $387,342. Expenses is 3%. Shortfall is $8, which produces a net operating income of $363,842, and capped at 6.35% gives us our our $5,730,000 rounded value. With that presentation, sorry.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any questions on the assessor's presentation, please?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but was there any consideration given to excess or surplus land here? I see that the actual business and building takes up approximately half of the available land, and at a ratio of almost 10. That's significantly higher than we're used to. Any thoughts on that?
We don't have any. On page 6, we have no building adjustments or any land value adjustments. If you look at the site, it does appear to be that there is another site, pad site, could be possibly. But I didn't, again, I'm not the assessor, I didn't investigate it, and the assessor didn't have that in his brief. So for this $5,730,000, I would say no.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to have a redirect after that questioning when you're finished, please.
Based on what? Based on his last answer to
Yes, with respect to the additional land or excess. So what's started as excess land here?
Okay, after my questioning.
Yes, sorry.
So on page 10, you were doing some math there and you added the net operating income. Or sorry, from the net operating income, you added the mortgage interest amortization. Was mortgage interest and amortization. So
Yeah, those two line items I would.
66,000 for the mortgage interest there, is that right? Or
Sorry, I thought that
65,000?
was 96,000. I have just the print that I have on brief is, do you have a PDF that's clear? Is it 66? Because if it is, then it would be reduced by 66.
Yeah, that's where I was going. That's where I was going with that. So
I apologize, you can adjust by the sum on 30,000. I just have the paper copy today and it looks like a 96,000.
right. So it's probably the net operating income somewhere around 225,000. Would you agree with that? Yeah.
If you're taking 30,000 off the other way, yes.
Good, thanks. That's all the questions I had. And then you wanted to correct? Yeah. You wanted to ask something about the surplus land.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Poole, with respect to your comments in regard when questioned about the excess land, if I could turn your attention to sorry, which page is the sorry, which page is the photograph, the aerial photograph?
Page 2 and 3. 2 and 3.
Sorry, 2 and 3. Yeah, I was way down the brief. Sorry. Okay, so
Page
if you can go to
aerial.
page 2, sorry, if you can go to page 2 in the top part, it shows sort of a bird eye view of the property, correct?
Yeah.
And you can see it's at the corner of McGillivray and what's the street that runs sort of like intersects McGillivray down there. Waverly. You see that area there? That's all supposedly excess land. Would you say, do you have any knowledge whether that land is buildable or not?
I did investigate that, and to be clear for this hearing, the assessor didn't have any land component put on value.
Okay.
There's no indication to that.
Okay.
It's pretty clear that we're not putting any value to it.
Fair enough. Would you be surprised if I tell you that area, a good part of that area is not buildable at all because of access points, etc.?
You know what, Mr. McCubbin, I think we have to move on because it's not
Okay,
really
fair enough.
relevant. And it's so, yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, forgive me, but the question was asked in regards to why the city didn't place additional land, given the land to building ratio being that high in comparison to other similar properties. And I'm just trying to address that matter, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you. I'm done. I'm finished, Mr.
He
Chairman.
could do that. He could do that in his evidence, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to ask him some questions when that happens.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, Mr. McCubbin, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to submit my briefest evidence, 1250 Waverly Street, roll number 0309119090. The file number is 24-1751. This is South Waverly Business and Science Center Incorporated. The client is Genesis Venture Incorporated. The site areas you've heard is 5.4 acres. The leasable area is 24,751. So quite a bit of difference in that area. The land to build ratio is fairly high for this type of property. Assessment year is 2025. The current realty assessed value is $5,730,000. Bear with me here, please. And we're asking for the value to be lowered to $5,407,000. In regards to the remainder of my presentation, if you can go to page 6, you will see essentially some of the photographs of the subject property. And now, if you look at that specific photograph on page 6, Mr. Chairman, you see that the area that I spoke about, and that was discussed previously as excess land. It's not excess. It's not a buildable site. It can't be built at because of access points throughout the property, and also because of setbacks. And that's what I've been told. I don't have anything to substantiate that in my brief. Going on to the description of the subject property, page 7, the subject property is located at 1250 Waverly Street. It's a one-story metal frame commercial building, presently used as offices. The subject property is located on the east side of Waverly Street between Buffalo Place to the north and the Gilbert Boulevard to the south. The building does not face Waverly, but rather faces east. The structure was built in 2005 and has a reported plan and total gross area of 24,524 square feet, and the wall height is 14 feet. The subject site is irregular in shape, with a total site size, according to the City of Winnipeg Property Assessment Taxation Department records, of 5.4 acres, zoned M2 industrial. So the highest and best use on page 8, Mr. Chairman, is as it exists in its current use. The only approach to value applicable to this property would be the income approach to value. Not going to go through. In my previous presentation, I've showed you potential asking rents from Avison Capital, CPR, and Colliers. I'm not going to go through that. On page 11, you've heard about that. You've heard about me discussing contract rents and using them in the same frame as market rents, and that was discussed on page 12 previously with respect to the municipal board order. In regards to the comparisons used, that's found on page 12. The median is 15. The average is 14.77. Based on above, we'll apply the actual rent as market, which equates to 15.64 per square foot. And you can see how we arrive at that on page 13 of the presentation, Mr. Chairman. We're applying, so we're arriving at a potential market income of $387,306 by application of the contract rents, and the overall contract rent is $15.64. The city has used 6%. We're in concert with the city in regards to vacancy and shortfall, non-recoverable expenses also. In regards to the capitalization rate, Mr. Chairman, we're applying a capitalization rate of 6.5%. The city has applied a capitalization rate of 6.35%. I've discussed in general recent office property sales, in particular the ones that are located as such or can be termed as such, a suburban office, and it ranges from 9.85 to 6.05. So we're applying a rate of 6.5 in this case, Mr. Chairman. You can see the valuation and the income summary on page 18. After application, we arrive at a net operating income of $351,442 with a capitalization rate of 6.5% applied. We arrive at a value of $5,407 rounded. And in summary, we respectfully request the Board of Revision to reduce the 2025 realty for the subject from $5,730,000 to $5,407,000. And there's quite a few too many zeros in that, Mr. Chairman. Apologize for that. Remove the last 3 zeros, please. For reasons set forth in the above. In the appendix, you will see the city's income summary on page 19, and beginning on page 20, you'll see the the submitted income and expense statement, Mr. Chairman, and that's my presentation. I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Mr. Paul, any questions for the applicant?
No, I don't, thank you.
Schultz, any questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Mr. Whitbrad, any questions?
Yes, just looking at your page, is it 2 or 3? Your photo page, 6. So going back to that land composition. Prior to the building of this property in 2005, are you aware of the land composition underneath that building prior to the build, sir?
No, I'm not, Mr. Chairman. I'm not.
Okay, would you be surprised to say that it was probably exactly the same as the land composition that we have in the in the extra land at the south end of the property?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Well, the land under the building was the same as the land on the south end of the building.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense?
yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
can
so
see that, yeah.
it is possible to build on that land. They've obviously done it.
I'm not gonna comment on that. I really don't know the particulars with respect to the reasons why it wouldn't be buildable, but I suspect maybe setback rules, access points, looking at it as it exists today, Mr. Chairman, you can see you have an access point, 2 access points coming in to the property. I imagine you can use those, but to contemplate what could be built here, if anything, given the location of the property and the restrictions on this particular property, I can't comment on that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. As you go further north along Waverly, are you aware of properties with access points right off of Waverly? With an outlet and then an access into the property?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is doable, it appears.
In that context, yeah, in those built contexts, yes,
Okay,
they are.
thank you.
Yeah.
I
In
don't
those
have
built
any-
forms, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I have no questions.
May I
Oh,
just
go ahead.
interrupt for 1 second? And just bring our attention to the land sale in 2004, the sale in 2004 of 650,000. So 20 years ago, that would have likely been a purchase of this piece of property, land only. Do you think so, Mr. McCubbin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yes. You're welcome.
Anything in summation, Mr. Poe?
No, I don't.
Anything in summation, Mr. McCubbin?
No, I don't.
We can then move to the next property, 520 Academy. This is an application for revision of value. Mr. Pohl, you may begin your presentation.
One moment, please. I catch up with the paper. Roll number is 120700470000, 520 Academy. Our 2025 assessment is 900,000. Our lease, our effective age is 1987. Our leasable area is 3,124 square feet. Page 2 and 3, or you see pictures of the subject property. It's right on Academy. And the corner of Renfrew. Look on page 5. Sales we have. And we have one tenant in Harris who opens, they're approximately $18.25 square foot. To page. Starting on page 12 is the income expense questionnaire. Very simple one. We have a net operating income reported to us of approximately $37,915. One tenant. Go back to the comparables on page 6. We have comparables at 698 Gordon, 611 Academy, 1430 Taylor, 226 Oswald, 430 Overport, and 387 Broadway, which produces a mean and median rent rates of $18.42, $18.12. Over on page 7. We have C2 standards finish CRU of 2260, which is the $18.24, and then we have the C6 storage mezzanine, which is the 864 square feet at $14.14, which produces a total PGI of $53,439. Applied to our 6% vacancy gives us effective gross income of $50,233. Expenses at 3% and shortfall at $8 gives us a net operating income of $47,226, and capped at 5.25% gives us our value rounded to 900,000. So with that, our presentation.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any questions on the assessor's presentation?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Bearing in mind that he did not prepare this report, so but I'll ask this anyway. With respect to the applications of market rent to the property, Mr. Pohl, if I can turn your attention to page 7 of the presentation. You can see premise ID 26856 there, C6 storage mezzanine. You're aware of what that is? Is it storage on the main floor? Is it mezzanine? Is it basement?
Does look like storage. I couldn't tell you where it's located.
Okay, fair enough. Those are the only questions I have, Mr. Chairman. That's the only question I
I
have.
could say there is a basement area. It's most likely the basement, but I mean, I haven't been in the building.
Okay, fair enough. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Schultz, any questions on for the assessor?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Again, you may not know this, but that basement is 988, which kind of squares up with the storage mezzanine at 864 square feet. Do you have any knowledge if the basement is rentable, leasable?
No, like I said, I've got the brief here today. I've inspected the property. Like I pointed out, the plan area, or you should say that the plan area lines up with the one CRU. It's 2260. If you look at the INE, which indicates roughly about the same, a little under, I should say. I think that the storage area would be in the basement, but as far as I haven't been in the property. I can't comment as far as
Understand. Applicant may have further information. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I have no questions. Mr. McCubbin, you may begin your presentation.
Chairman. Okay, I'd like to submit my brief as evidence. 520 Academy Road, Realty Roll number 12-0700470000. File number is 24-2452. And the property owner is Liable Tires Holding Limited, and the leasable area, including the basement, is recorded as 3,124 square feet. The original age of the structure is 1987. And the site area is 7,148 square feet. The reference date is April the 1st, 2023. The current assessed value is $900,000, and we're requesting a value of $697,000. Moving right along to the property site and photographs, that's on page 6. You see the relative location of the building, a bird's eye view of it on the property, and also the street view of the property. Getting to the description of the property on page 7. Property is located at the corner of Academy Road and Renfrew Street. The subject is improved with a 1-story office building, as I said, constructed in 1987. The land area is 7148 square feet in zone C1. The plan area is 2248 square feet, and there is a 988 square foot unfinished basement in the property, in the structure. The total gross building area is therefore 3,236 square feet. The total leasable area with the basement is 3124 square feet. The leasable area for marketing purpose is the main floor only at 2248, essentially. And generally, that's what we see with buildings like this, with small basement areas. It's a kind of a throw-in. The property was previously 100% leased by Remax, vacated in December 2020. The property is 100% vacant as of the reference date. I don't believe that's true. Bear with me, please. That's an incorrect statement. Yeah. Now, in regards to the approaches to value, the only applicable one, Mr. Chairman, would be the income approach to value. Beginning on page 13, you can see we have about 36 rents, smaller unit type for properties as such, and you can see there are various locations in Academy Court and Provencher, Scarfield, Taylor, and Waverly, and also Wilson and St. Mary's. The best comparisons are 1, 4, 5, 6, 10, and 11, which have an average net rent of $16.99 per square foot. The current net lease amount annually is $36,100. So in our application, we are applying a rent to the basement area, but a very nominal rent of $3 a square foot, given its use for storage. Like I've said a lot of times, this area is usually not considered in the overall area as leasable, but for storage, depending on the type of area it is, obviously. So the potential market rent, therefore, we apply a rent on the main floor of $19 a square feet and to the basement of $3. So the overall rent we apply is $14.11 a square foot. We arrive at a potential market income of 45,676 square feet. The city has used vacancy rate of 6. We're in concert with that, and also the shortfall rate applied in non-recoverable expenses. In regards to the capitalization rate, Mr. Chairman, we will apply a capitalization rate of 5.75. The city has applied a capitalization rate of 5.5%. We're 25 basis points higher, and I've gone through our capitalization rates discussion previously. So if you look at our income summary, Mr. Chairman, on page 17, you will see that the end result is the NOI is $40,094 with applying a capitalization rate of 5.75. We arrive at an overall value of $697,000 rounded. And in summary, we request the Board of Revision reduce the 2025 realty assessment for the subject from $900,000 to $697,000 for the reasons set forth above. And in the appendix, you will see the city's income summary and also the income and expense statement that was returned. And that was my presentation. I'm open to questions, Mr. Chairman.
If I can just correct you for the record, you referenced the city's cap rate at 5.5, I believe you said. It's
Yeah.
actually 5.25.
Oh, sorry, 5.25.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, yes, I know, and it's incorrect in my presentation. Yeah. I stand corrected. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Paul, any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, generally I don't have much because again, I'm not the author of the report and vice versa. I'm just kind of sitting in. But I just want to make sure to be fair to the taxpayer. On your page 7, you indicate that the property was previously 100% leased by Remax, it vacated in 2020.
Right.
We have Harris Holdings currently occupying the property and they are a residential builder.
Yeah, no, that statement is incorrect. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's from a previous hearing. Oh, sorry.
So my next question would be, and you know, I'm being fair to all parties, when I look on our brief, for a basement, for area in the basement, which is, it's 900 square feet at around a $14 level rate, that seems high. Other than it better be pretty nicely finished on below grade area. And you're indicating you want a $3 rate on it.
Yes.
Does Altus not have any pictures of this space?
No, we don't.
Okay.
I have been in this building previously, though, a few years ago.
And there has
I'm
been,
familiar with the building.
to your knowledge, with the new tenancy, Harris moving in, given that they're a residential builder, did they improve the building in any way? Did they improve the basement area in any way?
I have no knowledge of that, Mr. Chairman. I haven't gone into the building since.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I'm just trying to get my head around the occupancy or vacancy. So in 2020, the previous company left the building. Was it vacant until the reference date? Or was it filled before the reference date? I know you say there's a tenant in there now,
That's correct.
but when did they move in? I can't find anything in the documentation and in the evidence that says there was a 2022 or a 2021 income stream.
Right. If you look at now, I mean, we can go to either brief, the assessor's brief or my brief, but in the assessor's brief, I'm there right now. But if you look on page 13 of the assessor's presentation, page 13, you'll see from 2021, the lease started. So I would assume that's when,
There it is. Yep.
pardon me?
There it is. I see it now.
Yeah.
Thank you. I missed that. Okay, I have no further questions.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go again to page 10 there, or however you come up with your 1411. So you had sorry, page 13 reference,
Page
please.
13 of my presentation, sorry.
Yeah,
Just bear with
page
me here.
13.
Page 13. 13. Okay, fair enough. I'm there, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you got Harris Builders on the main floor.
Yeah.
And you're putting them at 19.
Yes,
But only 3 in the basement.
that's correct.
Is that what you think is a standard amount for an unfinished basement? Is there something unique about it? Is it low ceiling or anything like that?
No, essentially, basement space is, in comparison to main floor space. Of course, it'll depend on the finish of the space and how large it is. But a basement space like this in a building like this, Mr. Chairman, we sometimes put a rent on it and sometimes we don't, depending on the level of finish. And the highest rent that I've seen on basement finish in a building like this is probably around the $3 range. You know, for a space that's located down there, because it's essentially, in a lot of cases, it's just storage. And it cannot be used for any other purposes. So
Well, how did you-
that's why, sorry?
Yeah, finish what you were saying, sorry.
That's why there's such a difference in the rent on main floor and in the basement. In
Okay,
some
and then
cases, we don't even place a rent on the basement.
you blended those numbers together mathematically to come up with 1411, or did you kind of like you did with the other properties?
No, that's blended
Excess
mathematically. That's blended
Yeah.
mathematically, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
The primary driver here was the 2248 when choosing a rent at $19.
I understand. I have no further questions. Anything in summation, Mr. Pohl?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Anything in summation, Mr. McCubbin?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, that will then conclude item number 520 Academy. I think it's appropriate to probably take a 10-minute break now. Okay, we are back in order. The next property on our docket is 621 Academy. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Pohl, can you begin your presentation, please?
Roll number is 1209780670. 621 Academy. The 2025 assessment was for $3,501,000. We have effective year bills of 1985, ranging to 2011. We have a leasable area of approximately 34,862 square feet. The next page over on page 2 shows the property. Just a bit of history here. It's not in the brief. This is the former RCMP building prior to being purchased. So on page 2 shows the location. Former roll number used to be straight across. The city took back that little call it just a little uniqueness there to the lane there. Took back, so the former roll number did include that, so now this is a separation from that. On page 3 she continues with the pictures. On page 4 shows the property place. It is basically vacant. There is a month-to-month lease in place, but realistically it's vacant. On page 11 is the full lining that was submitted. Yeah, I'm not putting any weight to the month piece that's in place, or I should say the assessor has that in his brief, but apologies, should make any commentary. It's the assessor's brief that I'm reading from. So again, there's majority of it's vacant. It's about 2,000 square feet with a monthly rent month. So from that point, we go back to the market comparables, which is on page 5. We see for the comparables on 5 Donald, 30 Spears, 765 Portage, 180 Main, 268 Fort, 155 Fort. We have ranges and median and a mean of $11.32 and $11.35. Those comparables are again on page 15. Forward. Look at them. Going to the market approach that we have on this property. Page 6, starting on page 6. We have this at 2,000 square feet for a CRU at $18.27. And the remainder of the building, we have storage mezzanine or below grade. Or below average, I should say. At $7.45, which produces a PGI of 281,362. Again, that's reflective of the state that it is basically what it is. They took over a lot. There's not a lot of economic moving forward in the state that it's in, so we downgraded the property to match. From that, we have an effective gross income after 6% vacancy of 264,480. Expenses at 3%, shortfall at $8, and produces a net operating income at $239,812, capped at 6.85%. Leads us back to the capitalized value of $3,501,000. So with that, our presentation is done.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any questions for the assessor?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have no questions for the assessor.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
So the information we have is the building has been vacant 94% since 2014, with 2,000 square feet rented out. Is that correct from what you know of the evidence?
Again, this is Mr. Abhishek Bradman's brief. For what I know of the building, I know more than that, but my first I think is information from what we have in place. It's basically been vacant. I would look at it as being vacant. That lease in place wouldn't be an economic driver that I'd look to continue forward.
And you're aware that typically the city would look at something like this property as a, what do you call it, chronic vacancy?
Depending on the nature of the use of the property, its long-term potential, what it's going to be developed in potentially. A number of factors go into that. Yeah, could be possibly.
Yeah, it's tough to ask you questions because it's not your brief, I understand.
Run.
Okay, maybe Mr. McCubbin can help us a little bit more when we get to him. Thank you. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
Just one again, it's on the vacancy. So on your page 6, you have vacancy at 6%. Based on model, I believe, I guess. Is
Yes, that's model rate.
okay? Because if it's, if the vacancy is greater than that, I guess it could have been adjusted at some point, right?
It could be, but that is our model.
Model. Okay, thank you. No further questions.
So the what you have is storage, again, page 6. Staying there, you have the storage mezzanine, which is the majority of the property at $7.45. So you're approaching this on the basis that it's vacant, but you got to put some kind of value on it, so you're evaluating it as storage. Is that the correct characterization?
Yeah, it's been a vacant building. It was used by the RCMP. It was purchased. And at that point, it sat the way it's been sat since it was purchased. So difficult to say, other than we downgraded it to put it to storage mezzanine, as that's a reflection of currently what's there. there's been nothing done to it that I'm aware of. Been no improvement to the property, basically sat as is.
I guess you can't answer this one, but I'll ask it anyways. Was there any thought to going with a direct approach on this one, the land value?
You could do that, you can land out any property, I mean, I do have I'm in a difficult situation today, I can't really ask too many questions other than general, but I may get that from the fellows, moving forward in his presentation. But generally, I'd be looking to explore the land value and potential what this property was purchased for. Given that nothing's changed since it was purchased. Maybe that did answer your question.
Well, yeah, it does. I'm not quite sure. I'm trying to come up with reasons why this would not be a desirable property to rent. You got any comments on that or any knowledge?
I'll have a few questions because I have to, but I think that's best approach to the appellant and the representative of the owner. But I give my take on it, but it's not my brief, so I really can't give my opinion on that as it's not my. I'm presenting the assessor's brief myself.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Mr. McCubbin, you begin your presentation, please.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. 621 Academy Road, rule number 12-09780670. File numbers 24-3216. And the property owner is Jags Development. The client is Caspian Construction. Leasable area is 34,862 square feet. The plan area is 21,518 square feet. And it has a rather large basement area, 15,179 square feet. So it's a one-story building plus basement. The original age is 1985. The site area is 1.2 acres. And the current assessment is at $3,501,000, and we're asking for it to be reduced to $2,453,000. I can get you to turn your attention to page 6 of my presentation, please. You can see the relative configuration of the site from a bird's eye view. And the photograph down below is just a walkway going directly into the front door of the building, sorry. And this is a ramp that goes down into the basement. And you can see the overhead door there. And I'm looking at photographs on page 7, Mr. Chairman. And in the bottom photograph, you can see the exterior of the building. It's a well-built building. So now I'll just go into a little bit. I'll read verbatim from this, from my presentation here. Give me, please. Page 8 now, with respect to property description. Subject is a suburban office building located at 621 Academy Road, just east of St. James Bridge. The building was originally purpose-built in 1985 as a forensic lab facility for the RCMP. However, the federal government announced the closure of the facility in May of 2012, and the facility was fully vacated in March of 2014. The improvements consist of a purpose-built office/lab facility, which was built in 1985. A very small addition of 1,500 square feet was added in 2011, just prior to the announcement of the closure in 2012. The main level consists of office and laboratory space with a total area of 23,018 square feet above grade. The basement level includes a loading area, storage, office, a lab, and mechanical space. The basement area is approximately 11,844 square feet. The land area is approximately 108,900 square feet, as I've said before, and it's zone C3. There are 58 surface parking stalls on the site. The property was purchased in May of 2018 for $5,600,000, which reportedly included $1,500,000 worth of equipment and $200,000 of business accounts. The purchase was motivated as the purchaser also owns the adjacent property at 6011. So there's an office building adjacent to it that the multi-story office building the owner also owns. The site is situated within the Academy Road neighborhood, Main Street Plan Development Overlay 1. The subject lies on the west part of the overlay in Area 1. This area is intended to provide commercial service-based activities while minimizing the impact of those activities on the surrounding residential neighborhood. As you can see, it's essentially residential to the south of that. Highest and best use is conversion to office space or its existing use, which is used somewhat as an office and storage areas. Now, with respect to the approach to value, we're only considering the income approach to value. In regards to potential rent, I've been over the asking rents for suburban office. I'm not going to go through that. But with respect to the subject property itself, the actual rent in place on the main floor is $7.20 a square foot for that smaller area. So now rent comparisons are considered. You can see the rent comparisons on page 13 also. And the median is 12, and the average is 12.31. Located on Main, Spears, Provencher, Wilson, and McMillan. The potential market rent. Sorry, let me back up here for a second. Based on the above, we will apply the actual rent as market, which equates to $7.20 per square foot, and $3.50 per square foot for the basement space. So you will see the stratification there of the rents in that table. So 2,000 of the space on the main is occupied. We're applying a rent of $7.20. 18,442 square feet is vacant on the main. We're applying a rent of $7.20 to that vacant space. And the basement is vacant, and we're applying a basement rent of $3.50 a square foot. It's 14,420 square feet in size. We will also include $16,453 in parking income without expense deductions to the net operating income. Just bear with me, please. With respect to vacancy, we're applying a vacancy rate of 6% on this property, and a shortfall rate of 9%, which is higher than the cities based on the actual expenses. They're fairly high for this property. Non-recoverable expenses, management and other, we're applying 3%. With respect to capitalization rate, Mr. Chairman, the city has applied a capitalization rate of 6.85%. We feel that this is too low. The property has it does have a vacancy issue, and it's very difficult space to demise. We'll apply a rate of 7.25%. And if you look at the previous table, you will see for the properties in the suburban area, you can see the capitalization rate, a high of 9.85 and a low of 6.05. We feel in this case a rate of 7.25 is applicable. On page 17, we have the income summary. And you can see that the potential market income is 185,793, shortfall rate of $9. And the parking income, we're adding back in at 16,453. Yeah. So we arrive at a net operating income of 177,847. And please. Okay. Yes, sorry, 177,847. And applying capitalization rate of $7.25%. We arrive at a value of $2,453,000. And that is rounded. In summary, we respectfully request the Board of Revision to reduce the 2025 realty assessment for the subject from $3,501,000 to $2,453,000 for the reasons set forth above. Now, with respect to my appendix, you can see commercial details with respect to the building on page 20. And you can see the city's income summary on page 21 and the income and expense return following that. Now, I did inspect this property, Mr. Chairman, not for the purposes of this hearing, but for a previous hearing. And I did inspect this building 2 Decembers ago. Pardon me. And it was used as a RCMP forensics lab. It's a very difficult building to demise in terms of the interior space because of the substantial construction that went into this building for its intended purpose originally. When I inspected the building, and it's still the same, I'm told today, the building was not being used. The area in the basement was not being used. A lot of it is mechanical with respect to what went on as a forensic lab. They also investigated vehicles in that building, so that's why the ramp is there. And so it's a very interesting building. I imagine at some point in time, because it's a substantial construction, it's a very well-built building. I guess at some point in time when the market determines that it may be converted to office in its entirety, given its location and its setback, and given the parking spaces that's involved here. I believe we did discuss the sale price and what should be excluded from that with respect to this property. And I think the best estimate of value for this property in its current condition, Mr. Chairman, is the value of $2,453,000 as it stands today. And I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I do. Again, I'm not the author of the report. I didn't produce rebuttal, but I'm going to be fair in general questions to the appellant and also for informative to the panel. JEG's development, they are associated with Caspian Construction, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So this property was purchased, as you indicated. It's not in our brief, but the roll number changed slightly, so it wouldn't show up. The assessor would not have known that. And it is exactly as you stated, with the reported $1.5 million equipment and $200,000 business accounts. You indicated that it was a motivated purchaser, and we do own the property next to them. Can you let me know, or the panel know, was this property ever intended to continue on as such, or was it always going to be redeveloped into something else?
Well, it wouldn't be continuous as such in terms of what it was originally constructed for, obviously. But the intended purpose is to repurpose this building, yes. Not to my knowledge, not to take it down.
So next line of questioning in that vein is, has there been any explorative consultation from the property owner to develop this with the city, or can it go into condos? Can it go into an office? Can they, what was the intent of purchase to redevelop into, given it was a property development firm that, or company that bought it?
Like I said, I believe the intended purpose was to convert it into more of an office use rather than sort of, you know, a lot of this building, it's a very difficult building to renovate because of the way it was built for the purpose it was built for. Obviously, the intended use is given the area is, to my knowledge, is in continuance as office area. I think eventually that will happen. They just have to find a suitable individual who would occupy the entire building, sort of, or most of the building. I don't know what else to say. With respect to ongoing talks with city, conversion, condos, I don't have any knowledge of that, Mr. Chairman.
Last question, given that it's been a substantial amount of time since the purchase of the property, nothing's been done, no permits been taken out that I've seen. Has it been considered to be put back onto the marketplace?
I don't believe it has, no. I don't believe that's a consideration, no. Because the property, the owner owns the office building next door also.
With that, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
Asked and answered, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Two. First question relates to the vacancy rate, and I wondered if you had given any consideration to a much higher vacancy rate, say a 25% for chronic vacancy.
I did, Mr. Chairman. I did, but given the state of affairs with this property, applying a 25% vacancy rate at this point in time would diminish the value too much, I felt. We have to balance it with what's going on in the marketplace. It is a desirable location. We feel in applying the rents that we did in its current state. Look, if this building was retrofitted, Mr. Chairman, and being used in its totality as office space, the rents would be higher, no doubt. But we've placed a rent of $7.20, essentially in the majority of the building, and $3.50 for the basement area. And we feel that in its current state atones for the vacancy within the property itself to some degree. I could have done this a different way. I could have placed a much higher rent on a presumed area that doesn't exist for office and apply 25%, but I didn't think that was appropriate.
Okay. Secondly, I'm looking at, just bear with me to know what year this is, 22. So on page 22 of, I can't remember if this is your brief or if it's the city's brief. It looks like it's maybe the city's brief. The statement, financial statements.
Okay.
And I'm looking at maintenance and repair in the building. You said you were in the building, I believe.
Yes.
And my curiosity is around a building this size, about 34,000 square feet in total. Is it being maintained or is it just being let be as is?
It's essentially just being left as is. The building is secure. To my knowledge, the building has no issue with fenestration or the roof leaking or anything. When I was there, and this was 2 years ago, like I said, so the building is secure in a sense, and it's being used somewhat by a tenant. And I suspect, yeah, it is a fairly low number for maintenance and repairs, $2,748.82.
Yeah.
But in my inspection of the property, it's secure and yes.
And my last point or question is that it follows Mr. Pohl's questioning around looking at the photo of these two properties together and immediately looking at, wow, that would make a lovely property for development with condos and homes, given its proximity to the river and Waverly Street and the bridge over the river. To the best of your knowledge, is there any conversation about redevelopment of this property?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
I have no questions. Anything in summation, Mr. Pohl?
I don't, thank you.
Anything in summation, Mr. McCubbin?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman. Information.
That will conclude this property 1600. Sorry. 621 Academy. Getting ahead of myself here. Moving then to the next property, 1600 Pembina. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Pohl, can you begin your presentation, please?
Roll number is 0308005520. Civic address is 1600 Pembina Highway. The 2025 assessment is for $2,399,000. The year built is 1999. We have a leasable area of approximately 6,274 square feet. On the next two pages shows the property. And on page 4 shows the tenancies that is in the property. They are medical related, pharmacy, professional health center, dental center. So tenancies as such. We have comparables at 118 Marion, 2478, 1817 Corden, and 2629 square feet, and 407 Graham at 2765 and 1700 Corden at $25 a square feet. So those are the 4 comparables that the assessor chose. We go over to INE, which is on page 10. Just the full INE that was referenced. It does appear that, if I'm not reading this wrong, the net operating income is $12,667 dollars. I apologize, it's a little small on my end for the paper copy that I'm reading. So the comparables are also on page 12 and moving forward, for reference. Have on market value starts on page 6. As you can see, there's 1,700 square foot CRU, 1,800 8 square foot CRU, and several that are just under 1,000. So our market PGI is $140,012. The vacancy that we put on is the same one, and the expenses shortfall that we've been discussing here today, 6%, gives us a effective gross income of 139,131. Expenses at 3%, shortfall at $8 gives us a net operating income of 131,945. Capped at 5.5% gives us our value of 2,399,000. And with that, I'm presentations.
McCubbin, any questions on the assessor's presentation?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
Not to the assessor at this time, thank you.
Mr. Whitbrad, any questions?
I don't have any either, thank you.
So is this building currently rented out completely?
We don't have any knowledge of any vacancy within it. From the INs indicated they are fully leased. So
So if it's fully leased, then the income and expense mailer,
if you look on page 10, average vacant space shows 0 for tenancies, so it does appear to be fully leased.
like you said, difficult to read. So if it's fully leased, the rent income is 89,535 is reported, 2022.
Yeah. Oh,
And
sorry.
you've got a
Maybe I didn't make that. Maybe I didn't make it clear when I was going over the property. I may have missed this. On page 11, one of the tenants, the Elemental Professional Health Center, which is approximately 1,769 square feet, they are owner occupied. So that rent would come off because they're not paying rent. But it does appear that the other tenancies are occupied. So unless that's, and that's kind of where I was going with it, unless I was going to wait for questioning, but unless that is common ownership between the other clinics in place, that may be a result of the lower than expected NOI.
Okay, so about 25% of it is 25% of it is owner occupied.
That's what they indicate, right? But I can only go from what's on the sheet today.
Okay, so if we were
There may be some commonality on the other, but there may not be, right? So I don't know, other than what they submitted.
okay. Further questions? Mr. McCubbin, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to submit my brief as evidence, 1600 Pembina Highway, Realty Roll number 0300800 55,200. And the file number is 24-1811. Me. Moving on to page 2 of my presentation. You can see the leasable area of the property is 6,274 square feet. It was constructed in 1999. The site area is 31,104 square feet. The assessment, is $2,399,000, and we're asking for it to be reduced to $1,808,000. Move along to page 6 of my presentation. You can see, as the assessor has shown, the relative location of the property on Pembina Highway, and you can see the street view below on page 6. Okay, and with respect to the description on page 70, the subject building is a newer one-story medical office building located at 1600 Pembina Highway. The building was constructed in 1999 as office space for Toronto Dominion Bank, and has a plan area of 5,376 square feet plus basement area of 1287 square feet. The basement is mainly used as common area for all tenants, lunchroom, etc. The leasable area is 6274 square feet. The property was converted to multi-tenant property approximately in 2010, approximately. And it's zone C2. The highest and best use for the subject properties as it exists today in its current use. With respect to the approaches to value, only the income approach is applicable in this instance. And with respect to potential market rents, I've gone through the asking rents for a suburban office. At the bottom of page 11, you will see subject property leases. Quickly outlined, there are 5 units in the property. 1,808 square feet has been vacant for at least 5 years. 1,700 square feet is owner occupied, and 3 smaller units are leased on a gross basis with old leases beginning in 2010. Now, with respect to the rents for this property, we will go to the market. I mean, the rents I have provided on page 13, we have a lot of smaller units within that rent in suburban office space with a median of 15 and an average of 15.10. We apply $21 a square foot as a best indicator of market applied to the total leasable area, which equates to $131,754 per annum net. And you can see the areas break down there. The space is medical space, and that's why we have a higher rent in this building, and also because of the unit sizes. Unit sizes would dictate a higher rent. We're using a vacancy allowance of 6% and a shortfall of $8 per square foot. With respect to non-recoverable expenses, we're using 3%. In regards to capitalization rate, if you can go to page 16, please. The city has applied a capitalization rate of 5.5%. We will apply a capitalization rate of 6.5%. So if you go to my income summary, please, on page, and I have to do a quick calculation. Please bear with me. Something does not look right here. Please bear with me. Getting there, Mr. Chairman, just bear with me for one. 1,600 pounds. Chairman, it appears as though on page 16 of my presentation, with respect to shortfall rate, and that was incorrectly calculated. So the shortfall amount should be 3,011. So we would have 123, 849, negative 3750. So the net operating income should be 117, 123, Mr. Chairman.
Voted.
1,802,000 would be the resulting value, Mr. Chairman. Just not a change. So I'd like to correct my total value to 1,802,000. And in summary, we respectfully request the Board of Revision to reduce the 2025 realty assessment for the subject from 2,399,000 to 1,802,000. And with respect to the appendix, you can see the city's valuation and you can see the income and expense return with respect to that property. And that's my presentation. I'm open to questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pohl, any questions?
Just a couple, again, with respect to sitting in for the assessor. Can you just confirm on your page 21, the rent income? I believe it's 89,500.
89,535.
Yeah.
Yes.
And can you confirm the net operating income?
On that, from that page, it's 12,661.
12,000.
12,661. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, and there is 4 tenants in place, one's owner occupied.
Correct.
So why is the actual reported so low? It doesn't seem to get anywhere near what you're suggesting. Or what
Well,
is-
that's because they're not reporting themselves, the owner, that is. Does that make sense?
Not sure, are you saying that the owner is not recording the income that he's collecting from those tenancies?
No, from the unit he's occupying.
Oh, no, I know that, like, Phil.
Yeah.
The unit he's occupying is,
1,700 square feet.
right, so the majority of. Not sure, like four.
It's about half, like, he occupies about half of the building, right?
Fair enough, that's all the questions I have.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Just again, you didn't consider a high vacancy rate on this as a chronic vacancy? Almost half your building is empty for 5 years.
Yeah, no, in this case, we didn't consider that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
That one was just asked, but I do have a further follow-up to the vacancy as well. So where the applicant was referring to the low income owner occupied isn't reporting the rent, but also would you agree then that because the 1,800 square feet, 1,808 square feet, that's vacancy would result in that low income as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
To some degree, yeah.
Owner occupied and vacancy.
Yes.
The most, yes. Okay, because the assessor had 0 vacancies. So you're confirming that there is the 1,808 square feet of vacancy. Approximately.
I believe
you,
that that space is occupied. I believe there was some chronic situation with this building previously, but I believe today this building is fully rented up, including the space that the owner is
So
occupying.
as of the date of April 2023, was it vacant, the 1,808 square feet? Are
Not
you
to my knowledge, but we're dealing with in April, the current circumstances as exists, I know, for January 1st, 2025. But to answer your question, no, I wouldn't think so.
that it wasn't vacant at that time?
No.
Okay, so
I don't like looking at when you look at the lease starts,
Mhm.
okay, that they report. They began in 2010 and 2015.
Okay, so the vacancies was for previous.
I suspect the vacancy must have been being reported incorrectly at some point. I think they had difficulty leasing the space up eventually until 15, some of the space, but I'm not considering a chronic vacancy in this case at all.
Okay, so the low income reported on the INE
Yeah,
isn't because of the vacancy then. Part of it is because of the owner occupied, they're not reporting their rent.
exactly.
Okay, so that's the only consideration as to why it would be low.
Yeah,
At
I
this
would say so.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have no further questions. Then we'll bring to a conclusion for 1600 Pembina. And we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much for your presentations, Mr. McCubbin and Mr. Polt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.